Hello and welcome to Stereotypical Ranked, the show where we take some of our favourite artists and rank their back catalogue worst to best. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most influential and controversial artists of the past 2 decades. It's Mr. Kanye West. I should say before we get into it that we typically shoot these episodes a week ahead of time. It's currently the 5th of August, so Donda has not dropped yet. So for that reason, it won't be included in our list. So yeah, let's get into it. Stereotypical, episode 13. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Stereotypical. My name is Liam McGrath. I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jack O'Neill. It's your time to shine, my friend.
Supposedly.
Supposedly?
Supposedly? Who knows?
Kanye bloody West.
The man, the myth, the bell end, maybe.
Yes, it's fair to say that you are more of a Kanye fan than I am.
Yeah.
But perhaps more of a new Kanye fan, I guess.
I wouldn't say new Kanye, So my Kanye story is I never really heard anything until I was in the car coming back from Alton Towers.
Right.
And I heard, I think it was Monster.
Oh, okay. That's
for the first time.
Intense entry point.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, you know, what a tune.
I've got things to say about Monster later on
Yeah.
before we get to that.
And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Then from there, that's when I started listening.
Yeah.
But I think at that point, Monster was like a bit of a throwback.
Yeah.
So Kanye's albums and release dates are very muddled to me.
Yeah, I perhaps wrongly ended up listening to them in the wrong order, preparing for this, because I know Kanye. I like some Kanye, but there was very much a lot of his work that I hadn't gone back and listened to until we decided to do this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if, that's going to affect my ranking at all.
Yeah, I think obviously because there's songs that we like obviously later on, just purely because of our age.
Yeah.
So we're not going to feel the same as some people the first.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I've tried to be really objective about it, but I think some of it is based purely on my own listening pleasure.
Yeah, nah, fuck objectivism, man. I've put it to one side for now because this is my top 5 Kanye albums.
Right. Okay. Just your favorite.
This is what I think.
I've tried to blend the two a little bit.
Yeah.
But it is very much this is what I'd rather listen to. You know what I mean?
We've got to just put it out there, just because I love Kanye's music.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean I approve of his actions.
No,
people.
I also would say the same.
Yeah. The same with the Chris Brown dilemma. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's girls. Good voice.
Separate the art from the artist.
Yeah.
Kanye he's had his moments, and I guess we can talk about how that's affected the albums later on. He's got 9 albums, which is a lot of albums. So we're only doing top 5. We're not ranking all the albums, but undoubtedly there will be ones that is in my list that isn't in your list, and vice versa, that we will have to talk about.
Yes, sir.
So the way this works, if you haven't seen an episode before, is that we will only talk about an album once we've both listed it. So we're going to count down from our number 5 to our number 1 and see what we get. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm just listening to your drab voice, and my mum's already clicked off.
Are you?
So the famous paper notes. I like how you got on board with the paper notes, because you didn't start with the paper notes.
Yeah. Well, I had them, but I would just leave them over there, and then I was trying to look, and it's just anyway. So number 5. What is your 5th best Kanye album?
First of all, I said first of all about 3 times already, so third of all, maybe. The rating system I use.
Oh, yeah, where you go through and listen to every song and rank out of 10.
I couldn't.
Because it's too close to you.
There was some that maybe I've left off that was album-wise, number 5, the album I've got was a 5.9, right, as an album.
Yeah.
But because some albums 9 tracks, some albums are 22 tracks, it kind of swayed it a bit.
Right, okay.
So they've gone. I'm going to have to go with my heart and not the maths for some of these.
About time.
So at number 5, I've got Graduation.
Okay, interesting. At number 5, I've got Late Registration.
Oh, that is interesting.
So, moving on, number 4, you have?
Number 4, I have 808s and Heartbreak.
Oh, okay. Number 4 for me, I have Yay.
Okay.
So before we move on, actually, neither 808s nor Graduation is in my top 5.
Wow.
So maybe we should brush on them first.
Wow. Wow. They're not in it at all.
Not at
That
all.
just makes me question, because I know what I've missed out.
I have to say, this list was very difficult for me, and I've listened to a lot of Kanye in the past week.
Yeah.
Pretty much exclusively, and it's drove me a bit insane. But
You've not got any of them.
so go on. So which one do you want to talk about
So we'll
first?
go
Just
graduation.
briefly,
We'll go graduation
we'll
fifth,
talk about
right? So-
graduation.
I put it fifth out of my top 5. This was a hard one because it's higher than 808 as an album,
With your rating.
which I've got 4th, yeah, but it's coming last. I think the rest are all higher, but this this comes from, like I mentioned before. So out of the early albums, I remember Graduation being a scene. I remember the era. I remember, the polos, the glass. Everyone remembers the glasses.
Yeah.
And with the songs on it, it was just too good to miss off. With some of the other albums that I did miss off, I just didn't feel like I liked them that much.
Yeah. Well, when I was listening to Graduation, because this was the first time I'd heard it, like some of these albums I'd heard before we did this, but some of them I had to go back and listen to, so I hadn't heard Graduation all the way through. And I was thinking, I started by thinking, oh yeah, no, this might actually make the top 5. And obviously it's funny how like you're like 2 years older than me, so you remember this maybe more than I do. I don't really remember Kanye being relevant when I was a kid.
was in high school, but like early years of high school.
Yeah. I don't think I was like tapped in enough to know then. Obviously, like I know some of the bigger songs from it. I remember them just, they've always been in the ether of songs that you know. I think Graduation is a really good pop rap album.
Yeah, it's the change in it from like the earlier hip hop, very, very sample based, to the more like synthetic sound.
It does what it does really well. And I don't think it's a bad album by any means. I guess one of the reasons maybe why it wasn't in my top 5 is I get how at the time it was different and it was a bit cutting edge, but now to me it sounds a bit dated. It sounds like that time, and I get it. I get that maybe that's not a bad thing. It's a moment in time, but it just doesn't seem very timeless to me. And that doesn't make it
compared
not
to Late Registration, what you've got in there at number 5.
Yes, which we will talk about in a bit.
Yeah.
Is Late Registration on your list?
No.
Okay, well we can talk about Late Registration now if you want, because I mean I think it sounds more timeless than Graduation.
Because of like.
Well, because so Late Registration for me is this thing that we've talked about previous times before, but like the evolution from a first album to a second album being everything that's good about the first and expanding on it in the second. So I'd listened to The College Dropout before I listened to Late Registration.
As you should.
And Late Registration kind of amended all of the problems that I had with The College Dropout. You know what I mean? I think the beats are better, the lyrics are better, there's more storytelling. It was more interesting to me. The College Dropout did sound a bit dated to me, especially in like the drum sounds and the drum production, where he went for sort of more of a boom bappy sound on Late Registration. I just generally found it more interesting. I guess even though it isn't necessarily I maybe wouldn't go back and listen to it loads.
Yeah.
It did have some good songs on it, and I think it's a bit long actually. That's the only thing I was going to say about it.
College Dropout.
Late Registration.
Really? I can't remember how many tracks it is, but
it's 22.
Yeah,
21.
The first one's longer though as well, and the first one's like 21 as well.
Yeah, for Late Registration for me, it started to lose my attention at about 11 songs in. So like, if you just stopped after Addicted, I think it's called, and then like just put Diamonds from Sierra Leone and Hey Mama up to and made like 13 tracks, I feel like that would have been better.
Yeah,
would have been a more concise album.
It's a shame that some of the shit I haven't got on this has got like them bangers on it, like Diamonds from Sierra Leone.
Yeah,
mad song.
Yeah,
but just not good enough. But is it better than like Stronger and Flashing Lights to put onto my list?
This is what I mean. Like, I feel the same way about Graduation because it has got those bangers on. But I just feel like, if we're talking about an album as a whole product, Late Registration did more for me. I felt like Graduation was a bit corny. Just
that's
listening
what I'm
back
thinking,
to it, you know what I mean?
Like, it's very like poppy, isn't it? And I think from my personal music taste and your personal music taste, I can see why we both have picked that album.
Yeah,
like Late Registration was good in the terms of like. The College Dropout has like like all the skit things in and all that sort of shit. Like it just cuts that out a little bit. Do you know what I mean? It tames it in. Like the first album, we might talk about it a bit more. I don't know. It's untamed. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like it was something if Kanye wanted it on there, he'd put it on there. It's not like music. Do you know what I mean? It's more like a story. But for graduation year, I just think it's because it's such a scene, and you can visualize it in your head, like the color scheme, like the teddy bear sort of thing.
Yeah, it is kind of iconic. Yeah, and I'll give it that. And it definitely was a moment in time, but I just think it hasn't aged well as some of the other records.
It's got a place in my heart.
I do love Homecoming. That's probably my favourite song off that record. Do you want to talk 808s a little bit?
808s and Heartbreak. This is when I feel like I actually understood what Kanye was about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just like the darkness of it. Do you know what I mean? Like Heartless is a classic.
Yeah.
But I've got Love Lockdown as being up there. Like that to me, like surmises it as an album. It's shorter than the rest so far at 12 tracks, which is better, as we both know that goal is 10 tracks. So the 22 we can fuck off with.
Yeah.
I do think it's a little bit top heavy for me. 808s.
Yeah. That's what I'd say as well. It did get a bit boring for me listening to it. I don't know. I just really didn't gel with this record, and it's funny because like beforehand, Sean, who was really into Kanye, was like, "Oh, I feel like 808s will be your shit,
your number one." Oh well,
not even my number one, but you just thought, that's my bag,
It's just like the filtered, like distorted vocals as well, and like
I don't know.
The auto tune is pumping.
It got really old really quickly for me. You know what I mean? I got bored. I was like, I want to listen to something else. It didn't hold my attention very well, and it's difficult because, like you say, it has got some iconic moments. Love Lockdown, Heartless, great tracks.
Yeah.
But this is the problem I've had with this as well. Is like pretty much every album, especially these earlier ones, have got those moments. You know what I mean? There is bangers and like hits that you can pull from a lot of the albums. But if we're talking in terms of just albums, this one just didn't do it for me at all.
I think it's a good album in terms of, like we said, like the first two have kind of got the same vibe of like hip hop, do you know what I mean? And like sampling and drum machine sort of thing. Graduation's totally different in the way it sounds. And I feel like from Graduation onwards, you can kind of see Kanye's development into making big music.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it was probably a very important album in his discography. You know what I mean? I appreciate the production of it and the changes in production, even if the pianos do sound a bit corny after a while.
That's the point. I mean, FL keys, how many people use FL keys? It's a stop plugin.
Yeah.
But the juxtaposition, I think, from Graduation to this is what I enjoyed a lot. Because I like Kanye's darker stuff.
Same.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like we got Graduation, we've got the happy stuff, the pop stuff out of the way, and then we're getting there.
Yeah.
So that's why I've got it at number 4.
So, okay. So we've said our number 5 and our number 4.
You need your number 4.
My number 4 is Yay.
Yeah.
Right. So is that on your list?
Yeah,
We'll get to that. So number 3, you have got.
What have you got on number 3?
I've got The Life of Pablo.
I've got The Life of Pablo.
Oh, really? I thought that'd be a bit higher for you.
Yeah. Obviously now, right, we're on my top 3 Kanye albums.
Yeah.
And this was peak Kanye.
When I think of you and Kanye, I think of the Pablo.
Yeah. I feel like I think of Life of Pablo.
Yeah. I think because of the age we are, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I it's not without its flaws. Don't get me wrong. Like I think it's a very messy album.
Yeah.
But I'm drawn to it. I don't know if it's because I sort of heard it at the time that it came out and kind of liked it, or if it's because it's just sonically more up to date and in line with what I sort of hip hop that I would listen to.
I think we had a hype about it as well. Like we know of Kanye at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, Kanye's bringing out a new album. It could change shit.
Well, this is something that I wanted to talk about with this album is like Kanye being like peak in the public eye. And not necessarily for awful reasons. Like he'd been doing erratic shit throughout the Yeezus era, especially. There was some infamous interviews.
Yeah.
But the sort of memification of Kanye sort of begins around this era, and it was so in the public eye when this album came out that I feel like there's memories attached to it for me when I listen to Pablo. And like the thing
visualize TMZ.
Exactly. Yeah, I hadn't listened to Pablo. Maybe I'd heard it like back in the day, and I hadn't listened to it in ages before we did this. And just going through it, there was so many songs that I was like, oh shit, yeah, this one. I forgot about this one. You know what I mean? What I would say is, like I say, it's very messy. If we were to describe, say, Twisted Fantasy, which we'll talk about in a bit, as like a fine art painting, this is very much like a collage. He's sort of just it's very experimental and that's very cool, but he is very much just throwing stuff.
That's what I like about it, though.
Yeah, same.
Like, I like how it changes from one sound completely to a different sound.
Yeah. And I think, well, we should have said this already, but like, we aren't, obviously we like rap music, but we aren't like massive hip hop heads. You're obviously far more into Kanye than I am. But like, these lists, I feel like aren't going to be, yours will be better than mine, but my list in particular is not going to be what
I don't know,
people would
because
expect.
you like more diverse stuff than I do, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I don't get about Kanye for me personally. Like he's probably my goated rapper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Disregarded like a lot of names. But that's just because I'm into more modern rap than like old school rap.
That's the thing, like, and part of that is an age thing. But I think because you are A, more into Kanye, and B, more into rap as in general, you will appreciate his old stuff more than I will. Whereas this album, to me, I know it has its flaws. Like lyrically, there's a lot of goofy moments. But again, the memification of Kanye, a lot of iconic moments. I love Kanye. The line about the model and the bleach, infamous. You know what I mean? There's a lot of those sort of moments going on. Some goofy shit, but also it just feels like it's iconic at the same time.
That's what you need Kanye to, and what you want Kanye to.
Yeah, you want him to be a bit mental.
Man, it's such a good album. 20 songs, right? And it doesn't feel like 20 songs.
No, it doesn't. It kept me quite interested.
Yeah, because
it says
it's so diverse, it's so fresh.
Yeah.
So, but like, just even starting with like Ultralight Beam, like I think that's a crazy song.
That is a goated song.
Crazy song. And then straight into like the messiness of like Father Stretch Your Hands, like part 2, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Designer remix.
Yeah. I think that part 2 is maybe a weaker moment for me on the record.
What, because it's too like obvious? Because that song was obviously massive and it's just, you know.
Yeah. Like he's not like adding a load to it.
No,
you know what
definitely
I mean?
not.
I think there's definitely better moments on the record. Ultralight Beam being one of them. Waves, another one.
Waves.
Iconic songs. Wolves, even though Wolves is dead messy, but I feel like that sort of the little high pitched melody thing is quite iconic.
Yeah, Wolves is my top track on the album because I remember being obsessed with the album, like we were saying about like the color palette and stuff. How like everything was just like pastel colors, and even like the album artwork. How much that inspired shit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
that's what I will say about this album, and we've mentioned it before with other shit. Like the aesthetic of it, both sonically and visually, was like peak. You know what I mean? And that's maybe something that Kanye brings to a lot of his albums. But I just feel like maybe because we were there at the time, this is particularly iconic for me.
Yeah, but when
it was difficult for me to put this here, to be honest.
Third?
I felt like it shouldn't have been that high.
You're joking.
I just feel like
we've just said it's peak Kanye.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like a lot of people, it's peak Kanye. But I also know that like musically, it's kind of messy and a bit all over the place and a bit erratic, and maybe that's reflective of him at the time. But like, I know that a lot of
what do you mean musically, man? What do you mean? Like, do you mean like in terms of like what song he's picked for the album?
Well, no. Like, okay, so it jumps from sound to sound quite a lot, like a collage. But also, it's very like just like the mixing's a bit all over the place and things sound wrong sometimes, and it's not like it's by no means polished. And you know, he released
exactly.
like however many versions.
He's gone through some shit.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, it was definitely going to be in my top 5 just because of how much I like to listen to it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And there's some stuff that I'm like, oh, this isn't like amazing, or not even that it's not amazing. It just could be like tighter. It could be better. But
I know I like them.
I just fucking love it though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's something great about
like
it.
Even like the weak songs, I don't think are weak compared to other albums.
Yeah, I also would agree.
Okay, so okay, now
that was Life of Pablo, number 3.
Good album. Mad respect.
So your number 2 is
Yay.
Right, okay, which I had at number 4. So we'll talk about that in a minute. And my number 2 is Jesus.
Yeah. That's crazy. First of all, that's even up there.
This is what I mean. People don't vibe with my list.
Like, I've always known you like Jesus. And it's always that time where like we both know like I listen to Kanye probably more than you do, and then you're like, oh yeah, but Yeezus is sick though, and I'm like,
well, this is the thing, right? For a long time, Yeezus was the only Kanye that I listened to,
yeah,
and I think as someone who makes music and is interested in just like sonics and mad sounds, coming from not Kanye's world, I appreciate the crazy production.
This is
of
peak
Yeezus.
crazy. This is
and
Kanye's gone now,
and it's also like it's still got that like Kanye innovation that he does a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's not a move you would have expected him to make necessarily to go into these big industrial sounds. But I just remember Sean showed me Blood on the Leaves, and like when it drops into the big like the horn thing, I was like, oh shit! It was one of them like like moments, and still like listening to it today, I just find it really interesting how crazy it is. It's not necessarily like his lyrical best by any means, but I think especially with this sort of music, I am drawn more towards the instrumentals.
Yeah, it's heavy in it. It's a heavy album.
It's a heavy album. It's sort of. It was a massive risk at the time. It's bold. It's crazy. It's anxiety inducing. I can't listen to it if I'm in a certain mood.
It's a gym sort of playlist, isn't it?
It's very intense.
Yeah.
Very, very intense. And I appreciate it. I feel like people don't like it, right? Because they're judging it by like a rap album standard. It's not necessarily a hip hop album. You know what I mean? The only thing that really makes it a hip hop album is the sense that there's like fat low end and he raps on it. But instrumentally, it's not like that at all. You know what I mean?
I get you.
There's so many moments that just draw from other places. And like I say, being someone who doesn't necessarily come from that background, it appeals to me because of that.
Yeah, I feel like, it kind of reminds me. Do you remember when is it Notes was coming out, right?
Yeah, 1975 Notes.
They're in here. They had to get them in. They're in here now. And like when when you first start listening to the album, like that's like a heavy tune in it to start off with, and you kind of like, not what I wanted.
Yeah,
that feeling is what I get from Yeezus.
Yeah, and to be fair,
it's just kind of like a black mark on the discography for me.
Oh, that's crazy.
It is, man, because it's got bangers on there. Like I can't dispute Black Skinhead. No, I don't think anyone can.
And no one can dispute Black Skinhead. I think it does put people off to start with a track like On Sight that's so abrasive.
Yeah.
And so left field. And to be fair, that's probably my least favourite track on the album.
Yeah, because I was going to say I like On Sight.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that and Black Skinhead are the ones I probably listen to the most off Yeezus, because it's quite a short album as well, really.
Yeah, I think it's only like 10 or 11 songs, something like that. And don't get me wrong, I understand why a lot of people don't vibe with this. But me being who I am, coming from my background, knowing the kind of music I like, this is dark.
Yeah.
It's intense. It's interesting sonically to listen to. Especially if you're someone who likes making music and is searching for West sound.
This is this is one thing that I like about listening to Kanye, because because we produce ourselves. Like when you listen, there comes a point when you stop listening to music and you're listening to it, and you're like, oh shit, I wonder how that was made. I wonder what they're using on that. Where like with this, like I just cannot fathom what he's done.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Even with basic sampling methods, I'm like, I don't get it.
It's almost like he sort of threw all the rules out the window.
I just can't imagine Kanye in a studio.
No. And
like obviously, like I've seen lots of videos of Kanye in the studio, and he seems like very calm, and everyone else is like losing the shit.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand what he'd do to make his music.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said. Obviously, he's known for his sort of love of collaboration and the amount of people that work on these albums. And there's something to be said for like his ability to sort of mesh all these different things together. And maybe that's why it's so interesting. You know what I mean? It's not just him, it's the fact that he knows how to work with all these other people.
Yeah, I like how he resamples himself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like he'll go back and get like a song from time ago and just sample it and use it again.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, Yeezus is my number 2. Mad album.
Wrong, but your choice.
Yeah.
We'll go with it.
What was your number 2?
Yay.
Okay, so Yay was my number 4. So why have you got it?
I'm glad that you rated it as high, because I can imagine a lot of people just disregarding it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like, I like Ghost Stories is not like an album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it means a lot, and it's sort of similar vibes. Like it's just so like intrusive to what Kanye actually thinks. and like coming from, you know, loving bitches and all this sort of stuff before this album, it just kind of changes it, you know.
Yeah. What Ye kind of feels like to me a little bit is, if you look at from Twisted Fantasy through Yeezus through Pablo, it's more a deeper look into sort of like the darker sides of fame and all this like craziness that's going on in his life. And Ye feels like when it gets to a point where it's so crazy that everything falls away and it's just him sat there left like slightly broken by the
Do you know,
whole
like the
experience.
fucking like stages of grief?
Yeah.
Like the last stage is like realization or like acceptance. I feel like that's this in an album. Do you know what I mean?
It's
so personal, but so crazy personal.
Yeah, that's what I've got. Like, it's very personal, very honest. I liked it upon first listen, but having listened to it twice more since then, I definitely feel like I will only grow to like it more as time goes on. You know what I mean? Like, because, like I say, I'm very much drawn to instrumentals before lyrics.
Yeah.
So now that I'm listening to it more and I'm listening to more what he's saying, those sort of layers are uncovering themselves.
But even with like the instrumentals, like it's just so like stripped back from what you've heard so far, and like what I like about it is like with the multi-layered harmonies and stuff, how like they're just timed, they're out of time. Do you know what I mean? I like you'll have the same person with 3 lines, but they've not perfected it, and you can hear it. That's what I like. But it kind of shows the rawness of what the album's showing.
I was gonna say like it's very stripped back compared to, like I say, like Pablo and Yeezus, the albums that preceded it. I like the production. You know, I like the fact that it's got that space in it. Yeah, because I think that sort of really reflects the sort
space
of
is massive
shit that he's talking about as well. You know what I mean? It complements it really well.
Yes, I just said space is massive, which it is. You can Google it. But as in terms of like rating systems, this is the highest rated I've got. Yeah, which is why I had to kind of throw some shit out the window and not listen to the ratings because it's not the best. It's not the best, but if I would put it second, obviously. Yeah.
And I knew I had to put it in my top 4. There are albums that maybe do more.
4, I think, is a bit low, man. Especially if you've got Yeezus at 2.
This is the thing, man. Like, I knew what my top 2 were going to be, pretty much. But Ye and Pablo, it was very last minute switching for me. I didn't really know
what to put them in at all.
No, I knew that they were going to go in. And I knew that there was going to be one old Kanye moment that goes in, which is what late registration came in at 5. But it was just the order of sort of those, but particularly Ye and Pablo, and then sort of throwing late registration on top of that. But like, I didn't really, because I think maybe I'd rather listen to Pablo, which is maybe why I put it ahead of Ye. Yeah. Even though they're both very different albums, you know what I mean? It was really hard to judge because Ye does things that Pablo doesn't, and vice versa. Pablo is obviously like much more far-reaching, but I think first, especially to proceed to follow Pablo, Ye was a great move. You know what I mean? To take everything back down to basics and to become that personal again.
Yeah, I think in my head, obviously, I don't know Kanye. He's not my fucking Bezzy mate and stuff, but it just feels like, you know, he's always been scrutinized for what he says. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes that he would say other things that maybe get more attention because they're so outlandish rather than just what he actually thinks. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Where like it just like kind of comes out on this one.
Yeah. I knew that this album was going to be in your top 5.
Yeah, this album I listen to all the time.
What like was you want something tattooed?
Yeah. Which people hate the fact that I want like a Kanye tattoo.
What is it?
But it's like the artwork is like it's like a mountain in the background, and I just want like it just as an outline. Yeah. So it's basically just some fucking triangles.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I thought there was a lyric. What's the lyric you always quote?
Yeah. So Ghost Town, yeah, which is a good song. Yeah. Every song on this is 8 or above I've got.
Oh really?
Yeah. Which is why I've got to put it up there because like I think the songs are good. Yeah. As well as, you know, a project. Whereas other albums I've got, you know, like 8, 7, 4. But these are all like I'd listen to them all.
Well, it's concise and to the point as well. You know what I mean? 7 tracks. It does what it gets in, does what it needs to do, and gets out.
Yeah, but I think it's I threw my hand on the stove to see if I still bleed, and nothing hurts anymore.
Edgy motherfucker.
So, it's number 1. We've got the same number 1.
It's mad how your 24 is still so emo. It's great. I love it.
Emo's sick, bro. I'm glad that All Time Low's coming back.
That's the
got a song with Pale Waves.
I've not heard it
Whoa.
yet. Actually, we can talk about that on the next podcast because I want to talk about some new music.
Oh, new Mew.
Number one,
Undoubtable. I think this is something everyone can agree on.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Yeah, it's mad because I fucking peaked. Like I said, like I've come in on this.
Yeah.
And it's the best album that he's made so far.
Yes.
And I feel like even though people might have other favourites, everyone who is a Kanye fan will go, yeah, it's a sick album.
Well, this is what I mean, right? So obviously, going into this, I knew that I loved Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? I knew how much outrage it'd cause if I put it at number one. I knew that I loved Jesus. And it was only when I went back and... Because I'd heard Dark Twisted Fantasy maybe like once, twice time ago.
What, like in its entirety or just like songs from?
I'd heard like some songs from, but I'd only ever maybe sat down and listened to it once.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, it's quite good at the time. It's only gone listening back to it now that I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is the Kanye album.
This could be a greatest hits Kanye album.
This is going to be one of those albums that people talk about for time. You know how we talked about AM being like a classic almost instantly. I feel like this is the same. It's like the first, especially the first half of it, the run of songs, Dark Fantasy, Gorgeous, Power, All the Lights, Monster, Insanity.
It is crazy. I got goosebumps.
And like you say, it's like a greatest hits. It's got some of Kanye's best songs all on one project.
Man.
It's probably got the most, aside from the fact that it runs really well as a whole album, and the aesthetic's consistent, and the sounds are consistent, and the mixing's really good, and the writing's really good. It's got some of his best and biggest songs on.
Yeah.
It's probably got the most best songs on.
Yeah.
That's why it's at number one.
Even like Blame Game being like 9 minutes, I listen to the 9 minutes because I want to see what Chris Rock says at the end.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, world class. And even like Lost in the World, I liked before I even knew it was on the album.
Yeah. I think maybe my only problem with this is that it's a bit lengthy.
Do you think, bro? I don't think it is at all.
But the thing is, whereas with 808s, I was like, the songs are kind of too long. I was like, we could have stopped this a minute and a half ago.
Yeah.
I
hate that feeling.
With Twisted Fantasy, it's a lot more a sense of this is long, but also it's chocked full of content. You know what I mean? Like, it holds your attention better than some of his other long albums do. And it's sort of justifiably long. It's maybe a bit too long. Some of the songs could have.
Man, what song would you say is too long? Like I said, Playing Game's long, but you got to listen to it. That's
the thing. I don't want a 9 minute long song, but also it is funny.
Yeah.
So
it's world class. And then obviously Runaway's got a long intro, but that's iconic.
Runaway's long.
Like, have you ever seen the thing where like people can like recognize a Britney song from like 4 notes?
Yeah.
And like if you hear that,
just one note. That's all
you know what it is. You know what's coming.
Yeah.
I feel like I could do a full episode on this one album.
I mean, we should do
definitely. It's ridiculous.
I think it's also got some of his least goofy lyrics on, right?
Right. Okay.
Because even back in the day, he's a good rapper, and he says good shit. Like, I like the storytelling on Late Registration, like I said, and some of those early albums, but he does say some bollocks sometimes. You know what I mean? And the only real time something stuck out on this as being a bit goofy is when he's talking about Michael Jackson being dead in Power. And aside from that, he's saying
Michael
stuff.
Jackson being dead in Power?
Yeah, in Power.
Yeah.
There's a line, I can't say it's got the N-word in.
Yeah.
Where he says that N-word dead.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only
that N-word dead.
That's the only standout goofy moment. Whereas obviously on Pablo, there's all the dumb shit. Even on Ye, man, he says something about being able to look at someone's titties and focus on 2 things at once. To me, he just says so much dumb shit.
Yeah.
All the time. And this is where he sort of is at his most lyrically profound.
Oh man, I'm just thinking like every time I listen to one of these songs for the first time, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
Every time. Power is maybe with Stronger one of Kanye's most recognisable songs, maybe his most popular songs. Monster's crazy. Like, I'm not, Lord Strike Me Down, but I'm not a big crazy fan of Jay-Z, which is mad because they can be considered, very similar. but he just doesn't do it for me. But his verse in Monster's sick.
Right, here's what I'm gonna say.
Oh.
And this is I like Monster as a song.
Oh
Right.
yeah, okay, not as an energy drink.
I like both, but I'm caffeine free these days,
Oh.
and it kills me. Monster, really good song.
Yep.
I don't get the hype on Nicki's verse. Everyone's like, Nicki Minaj's verse is so sick, it's so crazy. She sounds goofy as fuck. It's a good verse, but the delivery's fucking ridiculous. I just listen to it and I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? I get that it's embodying the song, but it's not.
No.
I don't want to hear it. It's not something I want to listen to. You know what I mean?
I kind of get you. I think it's sick, but I don't believe in the hype that it has.
Yeah.
But I think it's good.
People just
Because
bum up to it too much and I don't understand it.
I always have this memory right in my head where like, oh my god, like at house parties, I'm like, oh my god, put Monster on. We'll do a verse each.
I've been there where people have done that.
And everyone's like, oh, I love Nicki's verse. I love Nicki's verse. Like, you can fucking have Nicki's verse. It's not the best verse on there.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
So I do.
But it is a great song. But I just thought I'd bring that up because I want to air my troubles with a song that everyone else seems to love.
But Monster is a monster of a song, though.
It's a great song.
It's a powerhouse of a lineup.
It's a great song. It's a great lineup. Great verses. Even Nicki's ridiculous voice doesn't detract from it being a great song. You know what I mean? That's how great it is of a song that I'm like, this is dumb, but still, this is a great song.
But that's what Nicki Minaj does, like a lot of her deliveries and stuff. Like,
well, maybe that's why
Ellie
I don't listen to Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, Ellie loves Nicki Minaj, and like sometimes she'll put a song and I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I've not heard it before. And sometimes she'll put a Nicki song and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's not the greatest.
But yeah,
Twisted Fantasy is the greatest.
it is.
Like I said before, it's like a fine art painting. There's layers to
like
it.
the artwork.
You know what I mean? The production is some of the tightest production he's done. The mixing sounds great. You know what I mean? Everything is where it needs to be. It's the closest you can consider to Kanye making a perfect album.
Maybe. That's a bit outlandish, do you know what I mean? Because I feel like he's such a perfectionist. Like he said, like he's re-released some stuff and he'll wait until it's perfect, like we've seen with like the Timbaland drums. Do you know what I mean? So if the mix is messy, like it might be messy to you, but it might be that's exactly what Kanye wanted.
Well, this is what I mean. Like, this is what I was saying before about Pablo being...
Pink's a genius. Big word. Bold statement.
I don't know. I've said it before. Those words have come out of my mouth. But also, you have to remember how many people he works with. So maybe he's just a team of a lot of great people make a genius product.
Yeah, maybe in terms of, I get it in terms of, making music, but Kanye as an individual.
He's not a genius person by any means. Musically, he's damn good.
I would say.
But you can't just say Kanye West is a genius. The man tried to run for president. He's a fucking maniac. But
yeah, could have made it, I reckon.
No, he couldn't. And let's hope he fucking doesn't. But
would you rather have Kanye or Donald Trump?
Maybe Kanye. I don't want Donald Trump, but also Kanye just like, I feel like buildings there'd be no organization with Kanye. At least Trump like wants to be in power because he like loves power. He's a fucking dick.
I love power.
And he's awful.
Only song that was a 10 out of 10. Only song.
I don't want either of them to be president. And to be honest, I'm quite appalled that you've put me.
Appalled.
You've put me. I'm so appalled that you've put me on a public stage and asked me who I would rather be president, Donald Trump or Kanye West. All right, neither.
Musically, I would say Kanye's a genius. Purely for the fact that, when he releases a project, like, it takes over, no matter what it is.
Yeah, he's one of the most influential artists of all time.
As he states.
Yeah. But also, the fact that he states that
just shows he knows.
Him a bit of a dick.
But, like Kanye, he brings it back. He understands, he's made mistakes.
Yeah.
He wants to change.
So sorry, did I cut you off? Did you have no point?
I was just going to say, but, who knows, after all the shit that's happened, what Don's going to have.
You're going to ask me who I should be thinking leading the Labour Party going forward. Ask me any more deep, awful political questions.
We know you're a Tory. So, going
back. Fuck off.
So,
paint me in an awful
I'll
way.
go off.
I just wanted to... Something that we've not done, that we should be doing in these episodes,
let's just
recap
Okay.
So number 5, I had Late Registration. You had
Graduation.
number 4 for me. It was Yay.
808s and Heartbreak.
My number 3 was The Life of Pablo.
Yeah, we had that at both
At the
at number
same.
3.
My number 2 was Jesus.
My number 2 was Yay.
And both of our number 1s were, of course, My
Yep.
Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Yeah, your number 2 was Wrong. Is what it was.
Subjective opinion. So, best track off each album.
This is gonna be hard. This is a hard one.
College Dropout. Jesus Walks.
Yeah, or All Falls Down. One of them.
Late Registration.
What are you going for?
Crack Music.
Really?
Yeah. Or Roses. I don't know.
I did like Roses, but Roses was
So
one
it's
of
a
the
bit-
ones I had to put on repeat when I
Yeah.
listened to it back.
Yeah. Moving on. Do you want to move on?
Yeah, we'll
So
move
you
on,
give a
yeah.
very unsure answer to that.
I don't know if there's a standout song for me on that one.
Graduation.
Graduation. Flashing Lights. Or Can't Tell Me Nothing.
Flashing Lights or Stronger, maybe.
Stronger's good, but everyone knows it.
I like the beat on Barry Bonds, but Lil Wayne ruins it lyrically.
Really?
and-
I've
and
got that
his
as
verse.
as a 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that for me, though.
Yeah, it was not for me.
808s.
808s. Love Lockdown.
Heartless.
Yeah, understandable.
What's next? Fucking Twisted Fantasy.
Ooh, like, my instinct is to say Power
I was gonna
because
say
it's
Power.
like, the maddest one. But if I had to go second, I'd go Devil in a New Dress.
Not a bad call. Not a bad call. I'm saying Power. Yeezus.
Black Skinhead.
Blood on the Leaves.
Yeah.
Pablo.
Real Friends.
Ultralight Beam.
Understandable.
Yay.
Ghost Town.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And,
there's not a bad song on there.
Something that we've not mentioned
Hmm?
is Jesus is King.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it that way.
To be fair, there's some nice choir stuff, and I like the song "Closed on Sunday," even if it is
Yeah,
about Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's what I've got. I've got Closed on Sunday as my
Lovely.
favourite song off the album.
Okay, well that draws us to a close.
What a guy. What a guy.
Easy. That was our top 5 Kanye West albums.
Yep.
Please do comment below of any other artists that you would like us to rank. We might check them out.
Yeah.
Subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the usual stuff if you are watching this on the YouTube version.
On the YouTube.
On the YouTube. Thank you for watching. I've been Liam. This has been Jack. It's been Stereotypical. Speak to you later.